right, and we're back for another super exciting episode of the Rebellion podcast. This one won't be too long. I'm just going to do the projected starting lineup for this upcoming season, the 2024-2025 season. What's the starting lineup going to look like in my eyes? Okay, so the first thing to talk about, people do put a little too much emphasis in starting lineups. It really isn't who starts that's important. It's who finishes the game. Okay, that being said, I still think it's fun to do hypothetical lineups. And then what makes a good starting lineup? Okay, there's a lot of factors. So, first of all, balance. You have to have a good balance of players that have certain attributes. Because you got to be able to do everything to be a good team. You got to be able to defend. You got to be able to score. There has to be good chemistry. You could have 5 studs on the court together. If they don't like each other, if they don't play well together, you're not going to be very good, right? So you also have to have talent. So in college basketball, coaching's obviously really important, but talent is also very, very important. For UNLV, if we want to be good, if we want to be back to where we think we should be, which is a legitimate top 30, top 40 program, we're going to need to get talent. We're going to need to have better players than Colorado State, San Jose State, Wyoming. We have to have more talented players than them, all right? Anything less is just not acceptable to me, all right? So we have to have talent. And then experience. Experience is so important in college basketball. I don't know how many times I've seen a team with 5 guys who are at a smaller school who are all seniors get their butts kicked to a team that has a lot more talent, a lot more athleticism, but they're all freshmen and sophomores, and they just don't have that experience, right? So all of these factors, you got to try and get them all in for a good starting lineup, okay? Another thing, the importance of a really good sixth man, okay? Your starters don't necessarily have to be your 5 best players. A lot of times it's good to have a really good player come off the bench. Okay, that way when you take your starters out of the game, there's not too much of a drop off in productivity from offensively speaking, defensively speaking. So typically it's good to have a 6-man come in who can light it up, who can get hot, right? That way you can get that spark off the bench. It's always really important. Okay, with all that being said, let's go over kind of what I'm thinking so far, right? So I would say of all the players on our team, each one of them have a realistic chance of starting based off of, I'll just say my percentages, right? So I would say Deion Thomas has a 100% chance of starting. If he doesn't start, it's because, I don't know, he had like a really bad injury and he's like coming back slowly, something like that. So these percentages are if they're completely healthy, right? Jalen Hill, I would put it at about a 75% chance he's starting. He's a 6th-year senior. He's a really good player, very experienced. If he doesn't start, it's because he didn't recover well from his bad injury, right? Brooklyn Hicks, I'm very high on him, but I'm predicting him to be our 6th man. I'm predicting him to get 20 to 25 minutes a game off the bench. So I'm putting in the odds of starting at about 30%. Jacob Benarbi, I talked about him in our other episode, how high I am on this kid, all the potential he has, how good he could be. I don't see him being a starter, though, so I'm saying I'm going to put him at about 20% chance of starting. Jalen Bedford, he's almost 100%. Okay, I put him at about a 98% chance to start. Only way he doesn't start is if Brooklyn Hicks comes in and just kills it. And even if that happens, I could see them starting, 3 guards before Bedford's coming off the bench, right? Whiting, I think he was brought in to be Deion's backup. I don't see him starting. I think it's very unlikely, so about 15%. Isaiah Cottrell, love his potential, but, just based on how last season went, I'm going to put him at about 20% chance to start. Whaley, this is an interesting one. So he's one of our best returning players. He's one of the guys that has a chance to be one of our star players this season. There's a lot of competition, though, at that forward/forward center position. So I put him at about a 60% chance of starting. Jeremiah Cherry, this is another interesting one. This is the guy who, if we do start a traditional center, I think this guy's the favorite. So right now I'm putting out about 50-50 chance of him starting. Jaden Henley, it's no secret how high I am on him. I've seen other projected lineups with him not in it. I don't think that's going to be the case. I think there's a really good chance he's going to be one of our 3 best players. So I'm putting him at about a 70% chance of starting. Pape Njai, he's going to be raw. He's a true freshman. He's got a lot of learning to do, a lot of competition for playing time. I'm putting about 10% chance. And the only reason I'm putting him that high, he's a 7-foot shot blocker. He could just, be incredible on defense and earn that starting spot. I don't see that happening. Julian Rishwain, one of the most experienced players on this team, one of the best shooters, if not the best shooter on the team. Lot of injuries, so not quite sure where to predict him. The beat writer, Mike Grimala, he did his rotation, roster projection, starting lineup, backup, and all that. He had Julian Rishwain as like third string, like he's not even in the rotation. It's kind of hard for me to see that happening, though. And if he is not in the rotation, then I guess that's a good thing because that means we're really deep. But I put Rishwain at about a 30% chance of starting. Okay, and lastly, our freshman, Evans, super athletic, but again, he's a freshman. There's a lot of 2s and 3s on the team for him to compete with. I'm putting him at about a 10% chance of starting. Okay, all that being said, let's go over what my lineup is. Okay, so I've put quite a bit of thought into this, and what I think is going to be the starting lineup to start the season, and as of right now is probably our 5 best players. It's point guard Didon Thomas. He was the starting point guard last year. He was our best player last year, the first true point guard we've had since Oscar Belfield. Absolute stud. He has that dog in him. That's how I like to say he's just built different. He's just better when the pressure's on. He's going to be our superstar. He's going to start at point guard. Let's just hope and pray to the basketball gods he stays healthy all year, okay? Because who knows if we'll have him next year. I'd say the odds are against us on that one. Starting at shooting guard, I got Jalen Bedford, okay? The transfer from Oral Roberts. Very talented, can score. I like the transitioning from Luis Rodriguez to Bedford. Now, we may drop off defensively at the shooting guard position, but we're going to upgrade in so many different areas as far as bringing the ball up the court, shooting, and just being an offensive threat. So I'm excited for him. Small forward, my pick to start at small forward is Jaden Henley. 6'7", long, athletic, has really good handles, great at getting to the rim. I think he's a beautiful fit to be on the other side of Didon with Bedford on the other wing and him on one side. So I think the three of those guys' games fit great together in terms of driving and shooting. I love it. Power forward, okay, I went with Jalen Hill. Again, 6-year senior, smart, reliable, experienced, strong. He can defend, he can rebound. Not a great shooter, but not a horrible shooter either. Pretty athletic. So, yeah, I got him starting. And then at center, okay, this one was tough. I had to go who I think the best player is that we have not talked about yet on this lineup, and that's Rob Whaley. Okay, Rob Whaley was the guy that made the biggest turnaround from the start of the season towards the end of the season. Okay, he went from like our 9th man to one of our 5 best players. Just extremely strong. People underestimate how valuable he was on our team on the days where he wasn't scoring a bunch. He's actually a really good defender because he has that low center of gravity and those giant tree trunk legs that makes him like a really good defender. Again, he's not very tall. He's only 6'5", 6'6", but sometimes those guys are harder to score against when you're like a tall post player than another tall post player. I was a post player. I was 6'7". I was strong. I seemed to do better going against guys who were 6'7", 6'8", than a guy who was like a 6'2" football player. It was just awkward. Okay, so that's what makes Rob Whaley so valuable defensively. And he could be really good offensively too, as we've seen. So that right now is my projected starting lineup. And then I have Brooklyn Hicks as 6th man. Again, I think Hicks is going to have a big year for us. So to analyze that lineup, I came up with my starters, not just who I think should start, but who I think will start. Offensively, like I'm going to rate everything on a 1 to 10 scale. Offensively, I'm going to put it at about a 7. Okay? I think it has potential to be an 8 or 9, but we still don't know yet what we're going to see from some of the new guys. But defensively, I'm going to put out a 7 out of 10. Okay, so I think we're going to be above average offensively and defensively, but not elite in either one. So I think we have a chance of being one of the best offensive teams in the Mountain West and one of the best defensive teams. Thomas, I expect him to be a better defender this year, just with experience. Bedford, I've heard, is not a great defender. He didn't seem like he wasn't a good defender when I was watching him in the game film. But again, I think I was paying a little more attention to offense, if I'm being honest. So we will see about Bedford on defense. Jaden Henley, Coach Kruger already said he's a really good on-ball defender. I hope that's true because, replacing Luis Rodriguez is really difficult because of how good he was on the defensive end. And to be good in the Mountain West, you got to be able to defend. Look at San Diego State; they're dominant because of that reason. Jalen Hill, he's a good defender, and Rob Whaley, I already talked about, he can defend too. So that lineup does have the potential of being a very solid defensive team. All right, next, athleticism. I gave us an 8 out of 10 athleticism. All 5 of those starters for a Division I basketball player is above average athletic. Didon is above average athletic. Jalen Bedford, you see him in the highlight videos dunking on people. He's above average. Jaden Henley can dunk under the legs easier than I can touch the rim. I think he's definitely above average. Jalen Hill, he doesn't jump out at you when you watch him as someone who's super athletic, but he's sneaky athletic. Okay, and there's a highlight of him dunking on Brandon Miller, the number 2 pick in the draft. And I've seen other highlights of him dunking on people too. So he's definitely an athletic player. And then Rob Whaley, he had some of our most exciting dunks we had all season last year. The guy has bounce. You wouldn't expect it by looking at him, but he jumps out of the gym. So that is an athletic starting lineup, and there's no reason why that team can't take advantage of that athleticism going against opponents. The only team I see us going against that's going to be more athletic than us is maybe Memphis. Other than that, we should be the more athletic team every single game. Next, shooting. I only gave us a 5 out of 10 for shooting for this particular lineup. Not for our team, but just for the lineup. Didon, he did pretty well last year. He did better than I thought he would at about 36% three-point shooting. Crossing my fingers, he can up that to about 38, 39% with more attempts. Bedford was about 37%, which means he's a good shooter, but he's not an elite shooter, all right? But he is someone who can get hot and hit a bunch of them. Henley did not shoot a good percentage at all his sophomore year, but his freshman year he did. So I'm kind of hoping he can be in that 32, 33% range for this season. That would make him, someone whose shot you have to respect. He's not going to get the Rondo treatment where you just leave him wide open, okay? Rob Whaley, he's shown potential as someone that can shoot. I just don't know if he has that confidence yet. So if he comes in next season hitting threes, that's going to be scary. Okay, but I'm not super high on that lineup as far as outside shooting goes, which is why I only gave him a 5 out of 10. Okay, rebounding, I put out a 6 out of 10. Not a super tall lineup, but some pretty decent rebounders overall. Jalen Bedford averaged 6 rebounds a game as a 6'4" guard. That's awesome. Henley didn't average a ton of rebounds, but he has a good size. Same with Hill and Whaley. Didn't average a lot of rebounds, but they definitely have the potential of being a good rebounder. So we'll see about rebounding with that team. And then I love the height we have coming in off the bench to help out with that. Driving, I gave us an 8 out of 10. The ability to get to the rim. Didon Thomas, awesome at getting to the rim. Jalen Bedford can get to the rim at will. Henley, one of the things I was most impressed with him when watching game film was how well he got to the rim. Jalen Hill, pretty solid. Rob Whaley, he's going to get some big, slow centers on him. He's going to blow past them, right? So I love the starting lineup for driving ability, okay? So that's why I gave us 8 out of 10 on that. Size, I only gave us a 5 out of 10 because we don't have anyone taller than 6'7" in the starting lineup. Ideally, you have some 6'9", 6'10" guys in your lineup. I do think because of how strong Hill is, how strong Whaley is, we're going to make up for that a bit. Henley does have good size for a wing, but overall, not a very tall lineup. So I had to give us only a 5 out of 10 on that. Talent, did about a 7 out of 10. All right, 7 out of 10 is good enough to be a top 25 basketball team. I would say some of the teams we've had in the past 6-7 years that weren't good, those teams were all like a 5 or 6 out of 10 talent-wise. This one, top to bottom, I'd give us about a 7. When you get to 9, 10, that's like your Duke, Kentucky, the ones that have several NBA players. Okay, lastly, versatility. I actually gave this a 9 out of 10 for versatility. I love how versatile these players are. They can all play multiple positions. Whaley can play the 3-4-5. Hill can play the 3-4-5. Henley, I feel like Henley could maybe play 1-2-3-4. Bedford could play 2-3. So I do love the versatility of this, not just offensively but defensively. Okay, it's really important to have defensive versatility so that when you're switching off screens, so you can guard multiple players, right? So you don't have to worry about the offense screening to get a mismatch on defense. When you have players that can guard multiple positions, that's more difficult to do. So I definitely love the versatility. All right, before I wrap up, just for fun, I was playing around with some lineups. Best shooting lineup. We're going at point guard, either Deon Thomas or Brooklyn Hicks. At the 2, Jace Whiting. At the 3, Bedford. At the 4, Julian Rishwain. So this is a really small lineup, but this lineup can light it up. And then Isaiah Cottrell at the 5 because he can shoot. Our most athletic lineup, okay? Excuse me. I went Deon Thomas at the 1, Bedford at the 2. So this is practically our starting lineup that I have, which is our most athletic lineup. Henley or Hicks at the 3. Henley's really athletic, but Brooklyn Hicks might be more athletic, okay? And then James Evans at the 4. He's in all the dunk contests, jumps out of the gym. And then Rob Whaley at the 5. I would love to see that lineup. That would just be a really fun lineup to watch. All right, lastly, the tallest lineup. We got Brooklyn Hicks at 6'3" at the 1, Jaden Henley 6'7" at the 2, Jacob Benarby at 6'9" at small forward, Isaiah Cottrell at 6'11" at power forward, and then Pape Njai 7 foot at center. That would also be a fun lineup to watch. All right, guys, that's all I got for today. Let me know what you thought, what you would like to see our starting lineup be. What areas you think we're strong in, what areas you think we're lacking in. Let me know, and thanks for listening.